Hi everyone, my name is Projeni Pather and I am the chair of AAXO, the Association of African Exhibition Organizers. Thank you for listening in to our Agile Leadership series. At AAXO, we're grateful for the great leadership within our industry. And in our efforts to learn, inspire, and lead the way, we will be interviewing many of the leaders in our industry that have so much to share. So today, I'm pleased to be joined by Tiisetso Tau, Managing Director of Syngery Business Events. Now, Tiisetso has years of experience in the exhibition industry and is the founder of Syngery Business Events in 2010. He has led in the space with great passion and agility. So a very warm welcome to you, Tiisetso. To start with, maybe you can give us some insight into your experience.
Thank you. Thanks for the invite and thanks for having me. My experience, obviously, how we got to where we are today as Syngery Business Events. We were founded as an idea back in 2010. I think the latter part of 2010 kind of had the conversation. At the time, I approached Manda Margerson from onshore with an idea of having a sort of a BE business, BE company that would obviously play a role in the exhibition management space. She obviously subsequently introduced me to her partner at the time, or still is, Jackie Reynolds. I think for the second or third meeting, we then met the other shareholder, who was Justin Halls from Scan Display. And yeah, that's how Scan On Show was started, around about 2010, 2011. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. And subsequent to that, I mean, what are some of the bigger events that you organized or have managed over the past 10 years? I mean, the identifiers.
Yeah, look, I mean, obviously we were slow kind of getting out of the starting blocks as a business. And I think, we obviously took a chance at the time to run Meetings Africa, to pitch for Meetings Africa, which we pitched and we were quite successful, primarily because of the offering that we had in terms of what we proposed in our proposals. Along the way, we obviously picked up a few opportunities, like, for example, World Health and Aging Conference, one or two bits of work here and there, but nothing major to the magnitude of Meetings Africa. In fact, I could safely say that it carried on for about a good part of our foundation, i.e. 7 years of us just manning that show, So yeah, that's basically how it started. Obviously along the way, and obviously since I've taken over as a major shareholder with the acquisition of shares, the purpose was obviously to change that, and to make sure that we do a lot more and we're recognized as a bigger player and a broader player in the industry. And I think we've been fortunate over the past 3-4 years of running shows like, getting involved in shows like GovTech, obviously Africa's Travel Indaba. We did, obviously we were awarded the Comrades Marathon exhibition last year. So, and we've got 1 or 2 deals that we're working on on the continent. So, I think COVID hasn't been helpful, but we obviously are still forceful in making sure that we grow as a business.
Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Definitely remarkable events to be involved in. And I think the way it's been managed over the past few years has definitely set a mark in the country in terms of events that are looked forward to. So well done to you and your team on that, setting the pace for those events. It's really, really been brilliant. Now, talking about COVID, like you mentioned, obviously hit all of us. The storm is still raging, I think, and it's trying to find our pace within the storm. But how are you and your team evolving to this current situation?
Interesting question, and I get asked that question all the time. And that, often the question kind of leads to the future of Syngery and what other business opportunities are out there. I think one of the biggest things that I'm probably proud of during lockdown level 5 and the beginning of COVID is we decided to do what we call a MICE readiness training program. And, I'm very, enterprise development is something that's very big close to my heart. And I think the MICE readiness program was actually an idea that actually came up as a result of wanting to change the perception of the, my sector. And I think, often we try and drive, from a Syngery perspective, we try and drive transformation and making sure that we blood in new talents, new skills, the future progenies of the world. And I look around at the tried and tested players of the sector, and I can tell you, it's people that have been around the block quite a few times, and often I say to the team, we need to be able to blood in new talent, so that the future of events and exhibition looks a lot more different than it looks at the moment.
Absolutely, and we really do have to work with that. I mean, changing the landscape takes time, and it isn't going to happen overnight. And we need people like you and your company that put in those kind of efforts into the industry to, bring up the new generation of players within the exhibition and event industry, and to educate all those people that are wanting to be part of this industry and to make it more accessible, I think. So kudos to you and your team for that, for taking the initiative, and we look forward to seeing more of that coming around. But currently, what's been your biggest challenge during the crisis as a team at Syngery?
Obviously, we've got a lot of our shows that were cancelled, and I think, the irony of it all is that we had just moved into new premises when kind of COVID hit. So, obviously that meant that a lot of our shows, because of COVID, were cancelled, and we've basically lost almost 50% of our revenue for 2020. So that hasn't been a nice sight in terms of our books. Obviously, we need the oxygen, and one of the difficulties of surviving this period is making sure that we have enough oxygen to get to the end of the year, and then make sure that hopefully by the time we get to the end of the year, the peak will be over and we can start talking 2021 and how we roll out those projects that we were meant to roll out in 2020.
Great. Now, I know it's hard to think about the things that make us happy right now, and the things that make us smile, and the things that we can be really, really proud of. But these current times has made us work really hard. We know that, right? And I know that you and your team have been working really hard. I mean, the MICE training, like you said, has been something exceptional to come out of this period. Besides that, is there anything else that you can say that you're really proud of in terms of how you and Syngery and your team there have activated, or have thought about, or brought, that wouldn't have come about if it wasn't COVID, for example?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, we obviously have had time to reflect on new opportunities. And fortunately, a lot of our pipeline sits, as I said, in the continent. And we've had time to obviously start having those conversations with our African counterparts. I think a lot of our African counterparts kind of admire the kind of work that we do. And it's an opportunity for us to kind of sit down and conceptualize new ideas, new shows, which we've done that. And, I can safely say that there's one or two shows that we'll be announcing quite soon, that we're very proud of, that are as a result of, the being able to communicate virtually, which in the past, it needed kind of a face-to-face travel. And I think it's been a good excuse to be able to have those kind of conversations virtually and kind of seal the deal online, which we're very proud of, and long may it continue. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds really exciting. Well, we look forward to those announcements, and we look forward to giving you all the support you need as an industry as well. So we can say, watch this space, right? Now, I know everybody's made a lot of changes, and like you're saying, it's given us time to reflect, and it's given us an opportunity to look for opportunities during this time, because we're normally just spinning as an industry, from one event to the other, planning constantly years in advance. But at the same time, we've had to do some housekeeping currently, and we've had to make changes to our organizations. Is there any changes that you have made as a business that you think will remain after the pandemic?
Look, I think, I think before COVID, we kind of were looking at a trajectory of growth. We obviously brought in quite a few people on board. We tailor-made the business to suit the accounts that we have. If there was a change, it's obviously a change in the negative way, because we obviously had to downsize now as a result of COVID. It hasn't been great, but it's par for the course that in the midst of the lack of work and the lack of opportunity, we need to obviously be leaner so that we can survive the storm, so to say. So it's forced changes, I would say, but it's obviously not something that I would have wanted, because we went into 2020 with the intention of growing, year on year as we wanted to. So COVID has kind of bent our elbow a bit to kind of force the negative change. Yeah.
Well, sadly so. But
Yeah.
hopefully, with the new opportunities that are on the horizon, and we've got to keep on.
Change again to the positive.
Exactly. Now, looking at the event industry as a whole, and obviously you've been in this event industry now for a few years, and you develop a passion for it, because we just believe in the value of face-to-face. How do you think live events will change? What will the new normal be for live events going forward? Do you think there are any drastic changes that will happen because of COVID and will still remain?
Look, obviously, I think we need to also follow the kind of health and safety guidelines. I think, the whole purpose of having those guidelines is to make sure that we don't get more people infected in the shows that we get involved in. Obviously, that means kind of restructuring the, PPE requirements, making sure that there's enough physical distancing. And I think it's also an opportunity. I'm reminded of a webinar that I attended last week where, the strangest thing is that some of these field hospitals are venues that we traditionally use in our sector, so, and maybe it's an opportunity for us to also start thinking about, incorporating some of these field hospitals into our shows as well. Never have we thought of having an additional 3-4 beds as a requirement for health and safety standards should someone test COVID positive. Now, and this obviously goes to the fact that, the turnaround time between testing and getting your results can be done within a space of hours, that you can almost take someone one side and let them see a doctor, or, quarantine them, or whatever the necessary measurements are, so that, that person is not engaging with other exhibitors or people within the hall. So I think there's an opportunity there. It obviously means that the health and safety standards will be brought up a notch, not even a notch, but, largely a contributor now to the shows. And I think it's supported. It's definitely supported.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to play that game with the industry now. Never have I ever, right? Can you imagine? There's lots that would come out currently. But besides the security, and I agree, and in terms of the safety protocols, definitely something that we're going to go up a couple of notches by. The new normal will be our new normal, like everybody says, existing for a while, even though we generally operate under safety protocols. But besides the safety protocols, do you think there's anything positive that has come out of this for the industry as a whole?
Look, I mean, if I look at some of the engagements in terms of post a show, I think the positive is that we now can have those meetings virtually post the show itself, in terms of catching up on conversations that were done at the show. I think that has come out quite evidently in terms of the platforms that we use. And I think that for me possesses an opportunity where we can involve the broader market to get involved in discussion panels and discussion points post exhibitions. Yeah.
And I mean, looking at you've been on many of our SA Event Council meetings as well, and general conversations with other leaders in the industry, that we're all having offshoot meetings to find out how we're all coping and how we can learn from each other. Do you notice that there are any common leadership styles that are standing out for you right now?
Yeah, very much so. In fact, the last meeting I attended, I think, if anything, the sector needs to be a little bit more aggressive, I think. I think we need to fight for the cause of wanting to keep the sector alive. If I can compare to people like the taxi industry, the restaurant sector. I think those people are quite forceful in what they want, and I think we need to follow in the similar kind of trajectory if we want to maintain the sector. And I think sometimes lobbying is part of it, but I think we need to show intent and purpose of wanting to recover, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, absolutely. But besides us taking a more aggressive stance, I think in your personal lives, we need to sometimes maintain the calmness, right? What are you?
Absolutely.
What are you doing?
And I think for me, it's the most difficult conversations I've certainly had over the period is having let go of, of our staff. It's a hard conversation, and I think in one of the consultations I was asked, what are you doing about it? Are you sitting back and waiting to have these consultations, or are you out there, helping so that the sector opens? And I think it was a very interesting conversation, and one that I had to kind of look within myself to say, okay, well, what can I do to make sure that we survive the storm? What can I do to make sure that we save jobs? What can I do to make sure that people's livelihoods are maintained? And I think, it's just sometimes you just got to roll up your sleeves and get involved and make sure that you drive a purpose. And that's the purpose that I've been trying to achieve in my involvement with the SA Events Council.
Exactly. That's really great to know that you are rolling up your sleeves and that you are getting involved. And I think that is, as leaders in the industry, it is a role that we have undertaken, and it is our responsibility. And like you said, right now, it's been very stressful for everybody. I think to let go of staff and to try and maintain the jobs that we are keeping is really stressful. So how are you looking after yourself on a personal note? I mean, what do you do to keep your positive well-being?
I read a lot. Obviously I've got a couple of books that I'm currently reading, and I'll show you now. I've actually got it here. It's a book called Habit, The Power of Habit, by Charles Hughes. Obviously that keeps me kind of sane. I also do a bit of cycling. Fortunate enough to have an indoor cycling bicycle, so that kind of helps. So yeah, and obviously family times, quality time, and making sure that I, do my spoil in the kitchen as well. So that kind of helps as well. The other thing is spending a little bit more time with the kids and making sure that you assist on the homework front. I think homeschooling is something that a lot of us can say has been a bit of a challenge, but you're kind of reminded of the difficulties that teachers face, when they're in class, to kind of have to regurgitate some of these lessons year in, year out and teach our kids. And hats off to them. I really admire them. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, those will surely keep you busy. I definitely took note of that book. It looks like an awesome one. Yeah. And in between all your Zoom meetings, I like it that you have it on the table.
Yeah.
During lunch breaks and tea breaks when we find a moment. Tiisetso, what advice would you have for other leaders in the event industry right now?
Sure. I mean, I try and stay calm. I know it's a difficult one to say, but I think there needs to be an end purpose and an end goal, under albeit challenging times to get to the end goal. I think, it's a very difficult situation to be in, and my advice would say try and think of your team, think of the reason why you probably got into the business in the first place. I find that when you kind of talk to people, it helps, and you get all manner of perspectives and advice from a TERS perspective, a UIF perspective, funding models and how you can get funding from banks and other funders out there so that you can at least weather the storm. So it's just about making sure that your support structure and your network grows and you have those kind of conversations even outside of the sector. It helps, and I think a lot of small businesses are going through the same journey, same challenges, and I think no sector can obviously say that they're different from the other, because we're all impacted by COVID. And I think once you kind of have the conversation with people, you kind of get that idea of what advice you can get out there to make sure that you remain calm and you can still pay the bills at the end of the month.
Absolutely. Very, very important to remain calm right now. But besides the leaders in our industry, if you are an employee of this industry, what advice would you give to somebody that supports our industry?
Sure, it's tough times indeed for employees of our industry, and I think one thing that they can rest assured is that I've seen some of the leaders of the industry congregate under the SA Events Council, and I can definitely say to them, rest assured that these are people who have all your interests at heart. I've seen the passion. I've seen the kind of effort that they put into making sure that we drive the message. The emails that fly around 11, 12 o'clock at night, I've seen those, and I've seen the kind of communication on the WhatsApp groups that it's quite intense, and I think if there's ever an employee out there who has any doubt that they are working in an organization where perhaps, the leadership is not batting for them, rest assured that that's not the case. And I would strongly encourage the employees to kind of support the employers as well, and ask where they can get involved and how they can help, and I think let's all congregate and drive the message to make sure that, a bigger team is better than a smaller one, so to say.
Absolutely. Definite gems there. Thank you so much for all that information. It's been great learning about you and learning about Syngery, and I think many people who are going to be listening would be finding the insights are very helpful, and helping us all during this time is just so key. We all operate in silos sometimes, and we're so busy doing, right?
Yeah.
And
but I think, as I said, one of the positives that has come out of not operating in silos is, you and I have never had the conversation before, and I think in the space of 2 weeks we probably had about 6, 7, 8 discussions, which helps, and I've met quite a few more people driving the same purpose and same agenda. So that's another positive, that we now work as a team, and we can be a formidable team moving forward.
Absolutely. The benefits of collaboration, right?
Yes, absolutely. Indeed. There you go.
Wonderful. Thank you for your time and your insights into business synergy, Tiisetso.
Thank you.
Absolute pleasure chatting with you today. And to everybody who's been listening in, thank you for joining us. We appreciate your support to the industry, and be sure to catch the rest of our Agile Leadership series in the weeks to come, as we will be interviewing many more leaders who will be sure to inspire, support, and assist you in the journey ahead. I'm Projeni Pather, Chairperson of AAXO.